Some things happen in life. In that moment, they seem so ordinary. Later, you realize that was the exact moment everything began. George, at 61 years old, was a kind man who always took care of the people he valued. When he invited his beloved nephew, Don, to stay at our home, I never could have imagined how much my life was about to change. Anthony's serious expression still lingers in my mind when he told me, "Sophia, Don is a sensitive boy. You know, he has trouble sleeping at night. Take good care of him, okay? He needs to get himself together before starting at university." But how could I have known that we'd finally get the call about the house we've been waiting for, and that George would leave for 3 days to check it out, leaving me alone with Don. Don, at 20 years old, was no longer a boy. His tall frame, broad shoulders, and mature appearance made that clear. But to George, he was still just his little nephew. As for me, I had always felt a strange warmth and faint excitement around Don. No matter how hard I tried to suppress it, there was always something about our interactions. But this time, the thought of being alone with him for 3 days both excited and settled me. As George got into the car, he looked back at me one last time. 3 days will go by in no time, he said, but little did I know, those 3 days would completely turn my world upside down. Don quietly walked over to me, adjusting the strap of his bag on his shoulder. So when our eyes met, he gave me that same mischievous yet sincere smile he always had. "Looks like it's just the two of us now," he said, his voice relaxed but with an undeniable depth. At that moment, I felt a strange excitement. Don had grown up, matured. But being alone with him, this was entirely different. I couldn't have predicted what would happen that night, but one thing is certain. It was a night I will never forget. That's when it all began, and that's how our story starts. Stay tuned, because this is a tale that will truly surprise you. As the morning light filtered into the house, I was busy preparing breakfast in the kitchen. After George had left the house, felt strangely quiet and peaceful. But the silence didn't last long. I heard the sound of footsteps on the stairs, signaling that Don was awake. He appeared at the doorway, wearing a casual t-shirt and with his hair slightly messy. He looked both warm and effortlessly striking. "Good morning, Sophia," he said, his voice carrying a soft tone. His eyes met mine directly and a faint smile played on his lips. "It smells amazing in here. What are you making?" Before I could respond, he walked closer and lightly placed his hand on my waist. "This morning, leaning in, slightly smells delicious," he added, his tone playful but genuinely warm. That unexpected touch startled me, but not in an unpleasant way. It felt strangely natural. "Just a classic breakfast," I said, trying to steady my voice to hide the tremble. "Do you want some? I'll eat whatever you make," he said, his eyes subtly scanning me. At that moment, it felt like he wasn't just in the kitchen. He was completely focused on me. When we sat down at the breakfast table, the space between us felt smaller somehow. Don spoke in his usual laid-back manner, but there was a different undertone to his words this time. "You know, Sophia, you're incredibly attractive for your age," he said suddenly. His words were so direct and unexpected that I had to set my fork down on the table. "I mean, really, you're the most striking person around. My Uncle Don, you shouldn't say things like that," I said, laughing softly, though I could feel my face flush. "Thank you, but you're exaggerating a little." "I'm not exaggerating," he said, his eyes scanning me slowly. "If I were in my uncle's place, I wouldn't leave you alone for even a second." I was at a loss for words. Desperate to change the subject, I stood up quickly and started gathering the empty plates. Don leaned back in his chair, his gaze never leaving me. He was watching every small movement I made, with an intensity that made my heart race. "We should celebrate," he said, suddenly breaking the silence. "Uncle told me you're buying the house. It would be a shame not to celebrate that." "It's not finalized yet," I replied, a small involuntary smile tugging at my lips. "But sure, we can celebrate. Let's do something tonight, just the two of us." He said, "You should dress up, wear something nice. We'll take pictures and send them to Uncle. We'll tell him don't come back until you've bought the house. We've already started celebrating. What do you think, Don? I don't want to disappoint you." But I hesitated, unsure. "Don't hesitate," he said, cheerful but firm. You're young and you'll have such an incredible figure. Wear one of your old dresses from your youth. Honestly, I'm curious to see how you'd look in one. Before this story spirals even further, make sure to subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications for more. And when the story ends, don't forget to show your support through likes and comments. It means the world to me. His words completely caught me off guard. But with Don's persistent and sincere gaze locked on me, I couldn't bring myself to say anything other than all right. We'll see tonight, Don smiled. It's gonna be perfect, Sophia. He said, a gleam in his eyes that hinted at a night unlike any other. George's words about looking after Don echoed in my mind. He's a sensitive boy, Sophia. He said take good care of him. He needs to get himself together before starting college. But Don's behavior this morning didn't match description of a sensitive kid, the way he was so relaxed. Mischievous and bold, his energy left me both puzzled and oddly excited. His suggestion of celebrating tonight lingered in my thoughts. At first I found it unnecessary, but I realized I shouldn't let him down. Maybe he truly did deserve a different kind of attention. I prepared Don's favorite dishes: chicken curry, creamy pasta, and fresh herb salad. I added some garlic bread on the side. Once the food was ready, I went upstairs to pick out an outfit in my wardrobe. I found a green dress I hadn't worn in years. As I slipped it on, I caught my reflection in the mirror. If this dress still fits, I must have taken good care of myself, I thought, but it does feel a bit too bold. When I went downstairs, Don was already in the living room. He was wearing a white shirt, and I couldn't ignore the way his gaze lingered on me. That dress looks absolutely stunning on you, he said, admiration evident in his tone. I felt my cheeks flush slightly. Thank you, Don. You're looking quite sharp yourself, I replied. He smiled and pulled out a chair for me to sit at the table. Our conversation at dinner was warm. Don was witty and sincere, but the way his gaze lingered on me a little too long made me both uneasy and strangely flattered. I could feel it in the air. This wasn't going to be an ordinary evening. While sitting at the table, Don leaned in slightly, his voice deep and intimate. Thank you for tonight, Sophia. Everything is amazing. But I think it could be even better, even more exciting, he said. His eyes locked onto mine, and there was something in his look I couldn't quite describe. A longing, a desire. His words and tone left me flustered, unsure of how to respond. I could feel the heat rising to my cheeks as I forced a nervous smile. Noticing my unease, Don grinned, attempting to lighten the mood. Let's call Uncle, he said, suddenly pulling out his phone. Before I could react, he was behind my chair, his hands resting lightly on my shoulders. The warmth of his touch sent a shiver through me, making my heart race. His breath close to my ear was almost tangible. When Anthony's face appeared on the screen, Don immediately started talking with an upbeat tone. Uncle, we've already started celebrating. He said. He turned the camera to the table, showcasing the beautifully set meal. That's when I realized I was in the frame too, with Don standing right behind me, his hands still on my shoulders, his face close to mine. George chuckled, his voice full of delight. So you're saying I shouldn't come back until I bought the house? Huh? Exactly, Don replied, leaning in just a little closer to me. I could feel his fingers brushing slightly against my shoulders. I wanted to step away from the camera, but I didn't want to ruin Anthony's happiness. All right, George said, laughing. I'll check out the house and head back as soon as I can. You two keep enjoying yourselves. As Don ended the call, I let out a deep breath, though it did nothing to calm the storm of emotions swirling inside me. I thought back to Don's previous visits, how he had always seemed a bit mischievous, yet endearing, but this time he was different. His boldness and charm were impossible to ignore, and they were stirring feelings in me I couldn't fully understand. I found myself comparing this to my marriage with George. How long had it been since he'd really seen me, paid attention to me lately? His focus was entirely on work,